The truth will set you free. The truth will set you free.
Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Right now I'm going to attempt to examine the Bible and dissect some of the churchy language we can really easily take for granted, digging into history and languages as I'm able anyway to try and get at the heart of the text so that we can hopefully see and then apply at least some of what God has for you and me in these words today. Now, I am not formally trained in Scripture. I'm just a guy using resources and a questioning mind to try and get at the truth, and that's something that we can all do, so I hope that you'll do that with me. We're looking at Proverbs chapter 10, verse 18 today. Let me read that really quickly. This is in the ESV, the one who conceals hatred has lying lips, and whoever utters slander is a fool. Now, I'm getting back into the swing of things and getting us back into our Proverbs study today after a break from it for a couple of months, so maybe I'm out of practice and not doing a good job of condensing my thoughts, but it seemed like, as I was putting my notes together, it seemed like verse 18 had a lot to unpack and to understand so that we could, really appreciate it better. So it's not the norm, but this time we are just tackling this one verse. In our study of Proverbs, for those maybe just joining in at this point here, we're aiming for a better understanding of the nature of this life. As geeks, we are often socially insulated and so can feel baffled by the thinking and behavior of others compared to what seems normal to us and to our minds, and that can make life really difficult for us at times. But Proverbs is here to help us better understand how to navigate life, how to navigate social interactions and relationships, calibrating our expectations and priorities so that we can live effective lives for Yahweh and the purposes that He has made us for, which is ultimately what it means, biblically speaking, to be wise. Now, no one is truly and purely the wise person or the fool, even though Proverbs and wisdom literature refers to the fool and the wise man and things like that. Those are just kind of like prototypes. Proverbs uses these labels to help us see and contrast between the two paths that we can take. And so we're endeavoring to see those paths and increasingly take steps down the path of wisdom. Now we're going to be looking, going forward in the near future, at Proverbs 10 verses 18 through 21. I thought I was actually going to do all four of those this time. It didn't work out. But those all share a common theme of speech. So for at least a couple of weeks, speech, communication, that's going to be our focus. The way we communicate can often inadvertently cause hurt or conflict or just awkwardness and alienation. And the way we communicate also inadvertently displays what's in our hearts. And so many geeks avoid talking unless they feel very safe. And then, because they aren't as practiced in communication, can end up bringing more harm than good with their words and their tone. So any proverbs about speech, words, communication are extremely valuable to us, I think. So let's look at verse 18 with that in mind and see what we can glean from it that can be helpful to us. Again, in the ESV, Proverbs 10:18 says, "The one who conceals hatred has lying lips, and whoever utters slander is a fool." So we've got these two scenarios here. Both of these scenarios are bad. Structurally, the second one is positioned to be considered maybe a little worse of the two. In the first scenario, the one who conceals hatred has lying lips. Someone who harbors hatred but says nothing about it, who is actually kind of concealing it, acting as though it's not there, that person is still not innocent. The classic saying goes, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. But as this proverb reveals, silence does not keep us from sin. God is concerned with our hearts. And so merely concealing hatred still leaves us as hypocrites, or as those presenting a deceptive version of ourselves. There can be lots of tendencies in Christianity that's where kind of a lot of passive aggressiveness can come from, is trying to present ourselves as, faultless, when actually we've got some nastiness inside of us, And so there can be a lot of that going around, of course, outside of the church, but inside the church as well. To truly be free of sin when we've got hatred in our hearts, we need to the person who's concealing that hatred needs to deal with it. They need to deal with the core issue of their hatred. Other scripture is better purposed toward how we work through our hatred. That's a huge topic, so I'm not going to pretend to try and get into it here. But for now, just looking at this proverb, I think we can at least see the suggestion, the implication that it involves the opposite of concealing it. So concealing hatred is an issue. So what's the opposite? In some way, that hatred needs to be revealed. We need to acknowledge not just that we're angry. I think sometimes we can feel comfortable saying, well, I'm angry. I'm angry at this person. This person makes me angry. Okay, but that's still concealing hatred, maybe, if hatred is really what's going on in our hearts. And so we're still in that situation committing the sin of hatred, but we've got to unconceal that, call it what it is, admit that it's wrong, and seek to change and to heal from that. When that happens, then we become increasingly free of hatred and also increasingly free of trying to keep up a false front as we interact with others. Now, in the second scenario, whoever utters slander is a fool. The writer identifies slander as the behavior of someone who is a fool, and we'll get to what that word means in a little bit here. The Hebrew word for slander includes any false information communicated about someone else that damages their reputation. In principle, this would include a lot of what we find ourselves carelessly saying about people we know, or much more often in geek culture, what we carelessly say about public figures. Whether that's celebrities that have just huge recognition, their household names, or a YouTuber, a podcaster, or something, whatever, and anybody that kind of has a public-facing job or life, we can end up talking about them quite a bit, and we can end up being pretty careless with our words. So think about when we talk about celebrities, directors, producers, a writer, a group of creative types. This whole thing really makes me take stock about those kinds of people, because in my own ministry, I'm talking about entertainment a lot, and now and then I'll say something. Usually I try to couch it in terms of I wonder what they're thinking. I'd be really interested to hear what they're thinking. But this proverb makes me take stock and say, okay, what have I said about different creative types? That maybe wasn't intentionally deceptive, but nevertheless imprecise enough to be untrue, and contributed to damaging their reputation in the eyes of at least one other person. This is a tough one in online culture and in our online habits and rhythms. We think of the internet as our place to just kind of say whatever on our minds. Especially if we're tucked away on like a Christian forum or on a Christian Discord, we can think, well, this is a safe place, and it should be a safe place. But in our definition of safe, maybe we're thinking safe equals can say whatever I want, without really thinking about it, without really giving care to my words. And if that's the definition, there should be no safe places for us as believers online. Certainly there are people who have rightly tarnished their own relationships, or their own reputations, excuse me. They're doing just a fine job all on their lonesome. But are we adding even a microscopic fraction to their negative reputation that they actually do not deserve, because our wording is maybe hyperbolic or imprecise, or emotional and therefore reckless? We might be saying something about someone, making a statement or talking about them in a way that is 99% true, but we are still responsible for the 1% that's inaccurate, the 1% that overinflates things just a little bit. There's a difference between, another example, this is a hypothetical, but I think it's still the kind of thing that we can end up saying as geeks online. There's a difference between saying that, sorry, what is that timer for? I think that's my laundry timer, dang it. All right, now I'm going to forget because I just turned that off without doing laundry. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of flesh this out with kind of a hypothetical, like a for example kind of thing. There's a difference between saying, I don't trust this CEO's monetary practices. I don't trust this company's, that's even safer to just say a company, because then you're not talking about a person, you're talking about trends and things that tend to happen that come out of this organization, I think it's a little safer to talk in those terms, but we might say, about Jim Ryan or Phil Spencer or whatever, these guys at the top of their relative video game empires, or however we think of them, we might say, I don't trust so-and-so's monetary practices. There's a difference between saying that and saying such and such CEO is greedy. The former, I don't trust this CEO's monetary practices, really is expressing truth about how you think and how you feel. And it might be a helpful warning to other consumers. The latter, saying such and such CEO is greedy, that presumes that you know what someone else is thinking or feeling, and may actually not be the truth or a completely fair representation of the truth. The idea of slander here is something that can be done without intending to. I think that's really important to be aware of. I know that I've slandered without intending to. I hope not recently, because this proverb says that the one who slanders is living as a fool. And we might think, well, so what? Okay, I'm a fool. That doesn't hurt my feelings. But remember, the concept of a fool in the Bible's wisdom literature is not just someone who lacks intelligence or knowledge. It includes those ideas. It can mean those ideas. But more broadly speaking, a fool in Scripture is someone who is content to disregard what God has said is true. And that's huge. A fool is someone who is content to abandon God's purposes for them and just live their own way. And we can have moments where we are living as the fool. And since God is the ultimate source of meaning and purpose, then this means that living foolishly is pointless and worthless. It's ultimately a self-centered path of nihilistic self-destruction played out in tiny increments over the course of our lives. And I don't want to be the fool. I don't want to live worthlessly for even a moment. But if we apply wisdom to our lives, if we apply, for example, this proverb, dealing with our anger, living confessionally and authentically, measuring our words to respect the value of even those who deserve criticism, these things put us on the path of wisdom, or in other words, the path in line with God's purposes. And that's a life that yields things of eternal worth and significance. If you would like some help finding a good church in your area, I would love to help you do that if I can. Online resources and communities are good supplements, but by their very nature, they can't speak to your particular situation like relationships in a local church can. The context for almost everything in the New Testament assumes that we are serving and building purposeful relationships in a local church. So whether you're in a church that lacks Bible-based intentionality or maybe not attending any church at all right now, if I can help you get connected to an authentic, compassionate, Bible-oriented church, I would love to do that. Email me, please, paeter@spiritblade.com, and we can try to look at some websites of churches in your area together.